Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really foundational. We're going to explore these deep, often kind of hidden links between, well, money, what it actually is, and pretty much everything else in our lives. You know, the economy, culture, even personal choices and relationships. And for this deep dive, we've pulled together some, I think, really fascinating stuff from two quite different places. We've got bits from Ayn Rand's novel, Atlas Shrugged, and then a look into Saifedean Amos's book, The Bitcoin Standard. Now, on the surface, maybe an odd couple, right? But as we dig in, you'll start to see these surprising parallels. They both explore what gives something value, and crucially, what happens when that idea of value gets distorted.
It really is striking. You have this narrative, philosophical take from Rand, and then this economic historical analysis from Amos, and they both seem to converge on this core idea that the, let's call it soundness or unsoundness of a system, whether that's money or, society itself, can have these huge, far-reaching effects on people and civilizations. Our goal today is really to pull out those key insights for you.
Okay, so let's lay the groundwork. Starting with the Bitcoin Standard. What is money, fundamentally?
Yeah.
It begins pretty simply, right? Direct exchange barter.
Yeah, you have apples, I have shoes, maybe we trade. But you hit problems fast.
Like, the scale doesn't match. I can't easily buy a house with thousands of shoes.
Exactly. Or the timing's off, my apples rot before your shoes wear out. Or we're just not in the same place. It's really inefficient.
So how do societies get past that inefficiency?
Well, through indirect exchange, using a medium of exchange, something everyone agrees to accept, not for itself, but to trade later for what they really want. But, not just anything works. Karl Menger, who's really foundational for the Austrian School of Economics, he pinpointed this key property, salability.
Salability. Okay, so that just means how easy it is to sell or trade.
Basically, yeah. But it's got dimensions. Menger and Amos, building on him, breaks it down. There's salability across scales.
Meaning, can you easily break it down for small purchases or group it for large ones?
Precisely. Then there's salability across space. Is it easy to carry around or transport?
Makes sense.
And then the really crucial one, salability across time. Does it hold its value? Does it last? Will it be worth something tomorrow, next year, next decade?
Right, it shouldn't rot or corrode away.
Exactly. And this salability across time, this is where it gets really interesting. It's about being a good store of value. And that depends on its hardness.
Hardness? You mean like physically hard?
No, more like how hard is it to produce more of it?
Yeah.
How difficult and costly is it to increase the supply? That's the key.
Okay, I think I get it. Harder to make more means the existing stuff holds its value better against new supply flooding the market.
You got it. And the Bitcoin Standard gives this amazing example, the rice stones on Yap Island.
Oh yeah, the giant stone discs.
Right. For centuries, these massive limestone wheels were their money. They were incredibly hard to quarry, shape, and transport, often needing, dozens of men. This meant the existing supply, the stock, was huge compared to any new stones being made. The flow, a very high stock-to-flow ratio.
And ownership was just known publicly. They didn't even have to move the stones sometimes.
That's right. It was a system based on shared knowledge and the difficulty of creation. It worked for them. It was sound money in their context, saleable across time and space for the Yappies.
Until
1871. This Irish-American sea captain, David O'Keefe, gets shipwrecked there. He sees the system, and being an enterprising fellow with access to, 19th century tools.
like dynamite and better boats.
Exactly. He realizes he can quarry and transport these stones way more easily than the locals ever could. He starts flooding the island with new, cheaper race stones.
So he drastically lowered the hardness, decreased the stock-to-flow ratio.
Absolutely. And this led to conflict, inflation. It undermined the value of the existing stones, and eventually the Rye stone system basically collapsed as their main money. It shows how technology can just completely upend what makes the money hard.
Wow, that's a powerful story. So, okay, from stones, humanity mostly moved to metals, right? Gold, silver, copper.
Yes, and gold emerged as particularly suitable. It's
Right.
practically indestructible, doesn't corrode, it's easily divisible, portable enough.
And crucially, its supply grows very slowly and predictably.
Critically, the new supply mined each year, the flow, has historically been tiny compared to the existing above-ground stock, maybe 1.5%, rarely ever above 2% annually. That consistency made it incredibly saleable across time.
A reliable store of value for centuries.
And you see periods of flourishing often coincide with periods where sound money, like gold, was widely used. Think of the Roman Empire's peak, or maybe more relevantly, Europe under the classical gold standard in the 19th century.
Right. That era saw huge progress.
Mises, another major Austrian economist, called the gold standard the world standard of the age of capitalism. He argued it boosted welfare, liberty, democracy. It encouraged saving, investment, global trade, and importantly, it acted as a check on government spending.
Okay, so if gold worked so well, what went wrong? Why aren't we still on a gold standard?
Well, the Bitcoin standard argues the system had a kind of fatal flaw, not gold itself, but the system built around it,
Which was?
relying on centralized vaults. Banks, and later central banks, holding the physical gold. While gold is hard, concentrating it physically makes the system vulnerable.
Vulnerable to governments.
Exactly. The temptation to control that centralized supply or maybe just issue paper claims without full gold backing proved too strong over time.
We saw that even back in Roman times, right?
Yeah.
Nero fiddling with the currency.
Yeah, debasing the coinage, mixing cheaper metals in, reducing the silver or gold content to stretch the treasury, pay for wars or palaces. It effectively cuts wages and gives the government more spending power through inflation. It's an old story.
And this is where Atlas Shrugged also really starts to chime in, isn't it? This theme of control, of manipulating value for political ends.
Absolutely. Rand's novel is full of characters trying to gain wealth, not through production, but through political influence, regulations, subsidies essentially, forms of monetary or economic manipulation that distort real value.
Okay, so back to the gold standard's decline. The Bitcoin standard points to World War I as the major turning point.
Right, 1914. Faced with the immense costs of this unprecedented industrial-scale war, governments across Europe basically said, you can't redeem your currency for gold anymore. They suspended convertibility.
Which essentially gave them a blank check.
Pretty much. An unlimited money printer freed from the constraint of their actual gold reserves or having to ask citizens directly through higher taxes. Wars could now be financed on a scale never before imaginable.
And after the war, did things go back to normal?
Not really. The central banks, now firmly in control, didn't let gold easily reemerge as this single global standard. You got what Amos calls monetary nationalism countries managing their currencies independently, often competitively.
Leading to instability.
Yes, contributing to the economic chaos of the interwar years. Amos specifically points to the U.S. Federal Reserve's policies in the 1920s, trying to help Britain by keeping U.S. interest rates artificially low as inflating a massive bubble.
The roaring 20s bubble.
Yeah, in stocks and housing, which then burst spectacularly in 1929, leading into the Great Depression.
And then enters Keynes.
Right, John Maynard Keynes. And the Bitcoin standard is quite critical here, framing Keynesian economics as basically giving governments the intellectual justification they wanted.
Which was?
To intervene more. Instead of blaming the inflation and credit expansion for the bust, Keynesianism, in this view, blamed the constraints of the gold standard itself for not allowing enough government stimulus.
So the argument shifted from government intervention caused the problem to we need more government intervention to fix it.
That's the critique Amos lays out. And it led to policies like FDR taking the U.S. off the gold standard domestically, banning private gold ownership, and devaluing the dollar significantly against gold.
Wow, banning private ownership. That's a big step.
A huge step. Amos even quotes from the 1937 German edition preface of Keynes's main work, where it apparently noted the theory could be much easier adapted to the conditions of a totalitarian state.
Oof. That's a provocative connection.
It is. And Amos argues this whole shift turned major economies into, his words, centrally planned and government-directed failures, with academia often becoming sort of an arm of the state, justifying these interventions.
So let's bring this down to the individual level. What does this shift from sound money like gold to unsound government-controlled fiat money do to us?
It fundamentally changes our time preference.
Okay, explain that. Time preference.
It's basically how much you value the present versus the future. Sound money, because it holds its value, encourages low time preference. You're incentivized to save, to invest, to delay gratification because you trust your savings will be worth something, maybe even more later on.
You plan for the long term.
Exactly. You build capital, you invest in skills and businesses. The Bitcoin standard uses the simple analogy of Harry and Linda. Linda saves and invests in better tools, becoming more productive over time. Harry consumes everything immediately and stays stuck.
And this connects back to Atlas Shrugged, too, doesn't it? The heroes are all about low time preference.
Absolutely. Agni Taggart rebuilding a railroad line. Monumental effort, huge investment, all focused on a future payoff, future productivity.
While the villains, the looters, were all about immediate gain, seizing assets, getting subsidies, consuming now.
Precisely. They embody high time preference, enabled by a system that allows wealth extraction without production, which mirrors the effects Amos attributes to unsound money, weakening the incentive to save and invest long term.
So, on a societal level, sound money fosters
What?
more future-oriented behavior.
Generally, yes. Amos argues societies with sound money tend to be more peaceful, cooperative, focused on building things that last. You see more saving, stronger families, passing wealth down, maybe even better mental health, because people feel more secure about their future.
And unsound money does the opposite, encourages debt, consumption, short-term thinking.
That's the argument, that it leads to lower savings rates, maybe contributes to family breakdown as people rely more on state support than family savings, and fosters a culture focused on instant gratification.
Now, the book makes some pretty bold claims about culture, specifically art.
Yes. This is definitely one of the more controversial parts. Amos contrasts the incredible technological innovation of the 19th century under the gold standard, electricity, cars, sanitation, communications.
Things that fundamentally improved life.
Right. Foundational stuff. But then he looks at 20th century art under fiat money and argues it reflects a shift to high time preference.
How so?
He suggests artists lose the incentive, the low time preference, to dedicate years mastering difficult crafts. Instead, you get trends that prioritize shock value or conceptualism over technical skill. He rather bluntly dismisses some modern art, like Rothko, as visually repulsive garbage or even a get-rich-quick scam.
Comparing it unfavorably to someone like Michelangelo spending 4 years on his back painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Exactly. The dedication, the long-term effort required for that kind of mastery, he argues, is less valued or incentivized in a high-time preference, unsound money culture.
Okay, that's definitely a strong take. It makes you think about incentives, even if you disagree with the artistic judgment.
It certainly provokes thought about how deep these economic structures might run. And this connects to another key idea, how economies coordinate information.
Hayek's knowledge problem.
Right. Friedrich Hayek, another Austrian economist. His point was that the knowledge needed to run an economy isn't located in one place, like a central planning office. It's spread out among millions of individuals, producers, consumers.
And prices are the signals.
Prices are the information system. They condense all that dispersed knowledge. His famous example, if an earthquake in Chile disrupts copper mining, the price of copper goes up everywhere.
Signaling to everyone simultaneously.
Producers make more copper, find alternatives. Consumers use less copper. No central planner needs to know why the price went up or issue orders. The price coordinates everything automatically.
So what happens in a centrally planned system, or one where prices are heavily manipulated, like interest rates by central banks?
Well, according to the Bitcoin standard, without real market prices, especially for capital goods, you can't make rational economic calculations. When central banks push interest rates below their natural market level, it distorts that price signal.
Making bad investments look good.
Exactly. It leads to malinvestments. Projects get started that aren't truly profitable or sustainable, that don't align with real consumer preferences or resource availability. They only look viable because the cost of borrowing is artificially low.
Like the contractor starting 120 houses with only enough bricks for 60.
Perfect analogy. You get a boom where resources are misallocated, followed by the inevitable bust when reality hits, and these projects turn out to be unsustainable. Wasted capital, unemployment, that's the business cycle, in this view, driven by monetary manipulation.
And this leads to the bezel. What's that?
The bezel. It's a term Amos borrows, referring to the amount of wealth that's been embezzled but not yet discovered. He expands it to mean unproductive activities or industries kept afloat purely by the continuous injection of newly created money.
So zombie companies are sectors that aren't really creating value but survive because of easy money or government support.
Think of industries insulated from market discipline, where success depends more on navigating bureaucracy or office politics than actually serving customers effectively.
Which also echoes Atlas Shrugged, with its depiction of politically connected businesses thriving while productive ones collapse.
Very much so. The looters in Rand's novel are essentially masters of the bezel, extracting resources from the productive economy through non-market means.
And Amos argues this has a psychological cost, too, working in these kinds of jobs.
Yeah, he suggests there's a deep psychological toll when people work hard but see their efforts creating no real value, just propping up something unproductive. A sense of futility.
Looking at the bigger picture, the Bitcoin standard provides some stark data points, like the size of the foreign exchange market.
Right. He highlights that the daily volume in Forex markets dwarfs global GDP many times over, arguing much of this is just the cost paid to overcome the inconvenience of having all these different national fiat currencies constantly fluctuating against each other.
A massive friction cost generated by the lack of a single, sound global money.
That's the argument, and he makes an even more sobering connection, linking unsound money to the expansion of government power in warfare. By noting that the ability to finance wars through inflation, rather than direct taxation or borrowing based on sound reserves, removed a major constraint. He points to the dramatic surge in conflict deaths in the 20th century, the century of fiat money, compared to earlier centuries under metallic standards.
Okay, so after that pretty critical assessment of the current system, where does Bitcoin fit in?
Well, the Bitcoin standard presents Bitcoin as a potential solution, a new kind of digital money designed specifically to be a decentralized alternative to central banking.
Decentralized being the key word.
Absolutely. The goal is to solve the problem of needing trusted third parties, banks, payment processors for digital transactions. These intermediaries, Amos argues, are security holes, enable surveillance, and ultimately reduce your control over your own money.
And Bitcoin aims to be sound money because of its supply.
Yes. Its core feature is this mathematically enforced, predictable, and strictly limited supply issuance. The total number of Bitcoin is capped, and the rate at which new ones are created decreases over time in a known schedule.
So an ironclad guarantee on supply growth, immune to politics.
That's the idea. Its programmed supply growth rate is designed to become far lower than gold's, and obviously much lower than any fiat currency's potential growth. This aims to give it superior salability across time, making it a better store of value.
And it's digital, so it's easily saleable across space.
Right, you can send it anywhere in the world with an internet connection relatively easily.
And saleable across scales because it's divisible.
Highly divisible, down to 100 millionth of a Bitcoin, called a Satoshi. So, in theory, it can handle both very large and very small transactions. It addresses those three barter problems, scale, space, and time, quite effectively.
How has its adoption played out so far, according to the book? More as money you spend daily or something else?
Amos observes that its price appreciation, its growth in value, has vastly outstripped its use in everyday transactions. This suggests its primary role, at least initially, has been as a store of value.
Like digital gold, something you hold for the long term.
Kind of like the old meaning of cash, he says, holding reserves, like gold bars in a vault rather than pocket money for coffee. Its security model, based on proof-of-work mining, where miners expend energy to validate transactions and are rewarded in Bitcoin, also reinforces this focus on security and long-term viability.
What about its governance? Can someone just change the rules of Bitcoin?
This is a key point. The Bitcoin standard emphasizes Bitcoin's resistance to change. It has these sovereign consensus rules embedded in the code run by users all over the world. There's a very strong status quo biases.
Meaning it's hard to change, even for the developers.
Extremely hard. Developers can propose changes, but they only get adopted if the vast majority of users independently choose to run the new software. Unlike, say, Ethereum, where developers famously reverse transactions after the DAO hack, Bitcoin's decentralized consensus makes that kind of top-down change virtually impossible.
That resilience comes from its decentralization.
Exactly, which ties into the cypherpunk philosophy that Bitcoin partly grew out of.
What's the core idea there?
It's this belief that cryptography and decentralized technology, like microprocessors and the internet, can empower individuals and fundamentally challenge the power of the nation-state.
Reducing government power.
potentially making governments more like voluntary organizations that have to earn their keep by providing services people actually want to pay for, rather than relying on coercive taxation and monetary control. It taps into a kind of anarcho-capitalist vision, self-ownership, voluntary exchange.
So Bitcoin is positioned as more than just digital money. It's potentially a tool for individual sovereignty.
That's a big part of the vision presented. It offers this parallel financial system, an independent way to hold and transfer value globally, aspiring to the kind of stability gold once offered, but in a form native to the digital age.
Does it need industrial use like gold to succeed?
Amos argues no. While gold has industrial demand, money's primary value comes from its monetary use. He suggests Bitcoin's success as money, like all money before it, won't be a top-down design decision, but a spontaneously emergent product of human action. People choosing to use it because it serves their needs.
So wrapping this all up, from ancient stone money on Yap, through the age of gold, the shift to fiat, and now the potential of Bitcoin. This whole journey shows just how deeply the kind of money we use shapes, well, everything.
It really does. Grand economic systems, the rise and fall of empires, but also incredibly personal things, how we plan our lives, whether we save, how we raise families, maybe even the art we create.
It leaves you with a pretty big question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If the choices we make about money have these profound ripple effects.
Then what do our choices today mean for the future? For future generations, for individual liberty, for the kind of society we're building?
Definitely something to chew on. As you go about your week, maybe take a moment to think about the systems you interact with. How sound or unsound do they feel? And how might that be influencing your own choices, your opportunities, maybe even just your own peace of mind?